Norman Vos. Dis 'n Engelse vos, dis 'n Afrikaanse vos, maar ek is bevoorreg vandag om 'n bietjie met jou te gesels en soos ek verstaan, dis 'n baie mooi storie, maar ek wil jou eintlik noem Norman Vos, die bendeleier. Hoekom noem ek jou so, Norman?
Yeah, Herman, it's quite a story. It goes back 65 years. 65 years ago, my brother and myself living in Rosettenville in the south, deep south. And that's where we grew up. Our mom, we were single parent. My dad had disappeared by then. And so my mom had 2 jobs. And she would come home from work, see that we were fed, go do a second job. And that's when my brother and myself hit the streets. Caught up with a couple of guys and joined a gang. And after about a year or so, I thought, you know what, I can do better than what they do. So I started my own little gang. We weren't many. We were, 5, 6, 7 guys. On the odd occasion, 9 guys. Other guys would come and join us. And so we did our thing there in Rosettenville. We started breaking into houses. This little white guy, I'd be the one to break into the house. And the guys would stand outside and I'd pass whatever we were stealing. And the other thing that we were very good at was shoplifting.
Sure.
Even today, I can spot a shoplifter a mile away. And I have on occasion told the security guard, check that guy. So yeah, so we did that, and then my choice, my number one sort of crime was stealing bicycles. I used to steal bicycles from children, young children, sort of guys my size, so that the bicycle I'd ask him for a ride, and he'd give me a ride, and I'd ride around him for a minute or so, and then down the road I'd go.
Norman, maar jy praat nou so lekker glad die Engelse taal, maar jy kan mos nou lekker Afrikaans ook praat.
Ek kan Afrikaans gesels. Ek met 'n boerenooi getrou. Ek het in Henneman en Tennyson al gebly en Welkom in Kroonstad, so ek kan die taal praat.
Jy praat die taal?
Ja, maar my taal is natuurlik Engels.
Ja, maar ons gaan so 'n bietjie Afrikaans oefen vandag.
Albei, ons kan albei gesels.
Ja, jy kan maar net so gesels soos wat jy gemaklik is. Norman, maar daai jare, jy vertel dit nou, en die luisteraars mag dalk dink, of die kykers mag dalk dink, maar jy's nou baie trots daarop. Uit die aard van die saak, nie noodwendig nie, né?
Nee, kyk, daai was anders. Ons was baie arm, nee. Daar was nie geld in die familie nie. En so wat ook al ons wou gehad het, ons het gaan vat, nee. Ons het nie kerk toe gegaan nie, dit was glad nie in ons lewens nie. En ek en my broer, ons wou gehad het wat ander mense gehad het. In ons straat waar ons gebly het in Rosettenville, Garden Street, nommer 26, daar was nie eens 'n kar nie. Wel, die enigste kar wat daar wel was toegesluit in 'n garage. Een van ons buddies het hom eendag gesteel, ons het 'n joyride gehad met hom, en but there were no garages. There weren't even garages in the houses. So there were no vehicles. And yeah, so I mean, we would, you wanted to go anywhere, of jy het geloop, of jy klim op die bus.
Norman, maar die Joodse saal is nogal 'n interessante storie, wil jy nie dit met ons deel nie?
Ja, okay, nou gaan jy regtig terug. Okay, so, dat was 'n dag, dit was die 25ste Mei maand, 1958. Dit was 'n dag wat ek natuurlik sal nooit vergeet nie, vir 2 baie groot redes. Nommer 1, dit was die 3de keer wat ek gearresteer was deur die polisie. They came to my house just before my mom had just left for work, and I was just about to get out of the house to go to school when the cops arrived. They arrested me. They took me to Sun City Prison, en ek was daar in die tronk vir die hele dag. Hulle het my toegesluit met die groot mense, en dit is 'n storie op sy eie wat daar gebeur het.
Hoe oud was jy, Norman?
Ek was daai 13. Ek het net 13 geword.
Okay.
En toe die hele dag in die tronk, en toe Boysons polisiestasie toe, en toe vat hulle my huis toe, hulle gooi my uit die kar uit, en hulle sê, maar ons kom terug vir jou. They also took me to what was called a reformatory school, and funny enough, it was called Norman House, my naam. Hulle het my soon toegevat en sê, kies jou bed. En toe het ek regtig begin worry. Maar toe ek by die huis kom, en my ma kom met die straat af, toe vra sy vir my, maar wie was dit? Ek sê, ag nee, daai mense het net 'n adres gesoek, toe help ek hulle weet om op die pad te kom. Toe gaan my ma werk toe kom die gang, toe kom ons by mekaar, toe sê hulle vir my, so wat het gebeur? Ag, nou is ek natuurlik baie trots, ag man, polisie het my kom arresteer, ek was in die tronk vir die dag, polisiestasie toe, en ag man, hulle het niks teen my, toe los hulle my. Toe sê ek, okay, man, wat maak ons vanaand? Hulle sê, man, daarbo by die Joodse saal, daar's iets aan die gang, ons dink is bioscope, 'n fliek. En as dit gebeur het, dan kom jy daar, en om in te gaan is of 'n tikkie, of 'n sixpence, weet, afhangend van jou ouderdom. En daar sit normaalweg 'n dame voor, en sy het 'n boks, en sy gee jou klein geld, en sy vat die geld. En die hele idee was om daai boks te gaan steel. Toe kom ek's nou die leier, toe kom ek sit my gesig in die dame se gesig, en in the meantime, is my hande besig om my boks te vat, uit die pad uit, ek gee dit agter, ek praat met die dame.
Maar dit was die plan, hè?
Dit was die plan. En as sy nou sien, wat eintlik nou gebeur het, then weet sy sal nou natuurlik begin skree, and I'd also be the blocker. So if anybody tried to chase our guys, I'd block and I'd say, what's going on? Hey guys, what's going on? So I'd block them, but that didn't happen. So when I got there was a lady sitting at a table with some books and stuff on. And I said to her, how much to get in? And she said to me, it's free. I said, man, there's nothing free. So she said, go inside and go and listen. So me and the gang, so we went inside and we sat down and we listened. I sat still right at the very back of the hall, this Jewish hall. And there on the stage was a Welsh coal miner's son called Roger Voke, telling me about God's love that was free. God was prepared to give his love to me free. Whatever sin I'd committed, it would be forgiven and die out. Man, I was so convicted. My heart, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, that there was a father who loved me. My father was gone. This father loved me and he wanted to forgive me for the sins that I'd been committing. And that night, I gave my heart to the Lord Jesus Christ.
Sure, Norman.
And that was 1958 and that was all those years ago.
Norman, dit is eintlik 'n pragtige storie en wat dit vir my sê is dit is nooit te laat om te draai nie. Veral vir die jong mense van vandag wat baie keer op verkeerde paaie is, verkeerde middels gebruik. Dis nooit te laat nie. Jy kan altyd 'n omdraai maak, né?
Ja. Ja, nee, natuurlik kan jy. Ek het self toe ek nou jonger was, we had a guy in Rosettenville. His name was the Duke. Mense, daar's miskien mense wat luister of wat kyk, wat gaan die Duke onthou. He was the mafia leader, for want of a better word, in the whole of the South. Okay, the Duke. En sy maand was Dutchie. Dutchie was toe tronk toe, vermoord. Hy het 'n man met 'n mes gesteek. So he ended up in jail, but the Duke he was the thing. And I'd been boxing, and while boxing, I managed to secure a South African title.
Okay.
For
What age was that?
I was just, in fact, I'd just turned 12. Okay, so I'm a junior, but it's boxing, and of course it's amateur. It's not professional stuff. And I won my fight quite clearly, and so I became a South African champion.
Wow.
And walking down the road one day, Main Street in Rosettenville, between Turfentine and Rosettenville Main Road, there's the Rosettenville pub with a glass door on the outside on the street. And as I walked past, the Duke called me. He said, "Fozzie, come here." He said, "I believe you got a title." I said, "Yeah." He says, "You see this guy here?" I said, "Yeah." This guy was about 16, much taller than me, a bit bigger than me. He said, "I want you to box him, and the winner gets a beer." So
At the age of 12?
Well, by now I'm 13.
Okay.
Okay, by now I turned 13, but so he says, "Box this guy." So the guy came and he stood and he towered above me. He said, "Do you want to fight me?" So I said, "I believe you're a boxer." So he said, "Put him up." So I put him up. So I looked him in the eyes. I said, "Now, you think you can beat me in a fight?" And what I did was, not proud to say, but I didn't hit him. I kicked him between the legs. And when he buckled down, I put my knee into his face and the fight was over.
Over. Done, dusted.
Done and dusted. I got my beer. I must be honest, I didn't finish it. It was like too much. But yeah, I must probably had about, I don't remember, I had about half of the beer. So there I was at the age of 13 fighting in a pub for a bottle of beer if I could box beat another guy in the pub.
But Norman, that was obviously before
That was BC
evening
days.
of the evening of BC Jewish Hall.
Yeah, that was BC days, before Jesus Christ days, yeah.
Right. So toe het jy nou groot geraak en jy het toe getrou later met 'n Afrikaanse dame en toe het jou lewe begin as volwasse mens.
Ja.
Wat het jy als in daai lewe? Wat het gebeur in daai volwasse lewe?
Okay. Well, gedurende daai tydperk, ek het toe ek uit die army uitkom, toe vat ek 'n job en daai job was toe in Kroonstad. Toe gaan ek na Vrystaat toe. En toe werk ek daar, ek het daar vir die ou Mutual gewerk. En toe ek vir die ou Mutual werk, toe ontmoet ek die dametjie. En toe trou ons en toe gaan bly ons in Tennyson. Toe trek I was promoted to district manager. Toe gaan ons Tennyson toe bly ons in Tennyson. En toe later, Volkskas het my kom haal, toe vat hulle my Pietermaritzburg toe bly ons in Natal vir jare, en toe begin ek vir myself te werk. Maar in 1976, toe is daar oorlog in Angola. En ek is 'n lid van die Ierse regiment. En toe was ons wat hulle, we were first standby. So they called the South African Irish Regiment to go into Angola to go fight the Cubans. And so on the beginning of January 1976, I got a telegram Friday afternoon. By Saturday afternoon, we were already on our way into Angola. So it was very quick. So when I came back from Angola, I'd lost the job I had. They said, no, they're not going to pay somebody. They didn't know how long we were going to be away for. There was no moratorium like happened later. They made a moratorium. If you're going to the army, if you're going to the border, you don't have to pay anything. For 3 months, everything stands still. But for me, it wasn't. So I walked the streets of Joburg looking for a job when I came back from Angola. The only job I could get was selling vacuum cleaners door to door.
Which was Kirby's?
No.
Wasn't Kirby's?
Forvac.
Oh, Forvac.
Forvac, not foreplay, Forvac. So that was our little byline. But anyway, so I did that, and the first day I went out, I sold a vacuum cleaner. They said, well, take a couple of guys with you. So the next day, I took guys, and everybody who came with me sold a vacuum cleaner. So they made me the team leader. The next day, they made me the sales manager. And after about a month, they sent me to Natal to go run the whole of Natal for them, selling vacuum cleaners. And I said, and I did well. But after a while, I got a bit tired of working for them. They said, you either come back to Joburg. No, you come back to Joburg. We want you back here now. So I said, no, we love it. My wife loved it. The kids loved it. They were in schools. So we said, no, we're staying in Natal. So they said, okay, well, you've got a choice. You either come back to Joburg or you're fired. I said, no, there's a third choice. I said, you owe me a nice bonus for what I've been doing here. So the third choice, I come back, or I stay, and you use my bonus, and the bonus is the money that you will use to give me this company. So I'll buy this company from you, the Natal branch, for my bonus, which is what happened. So 1976, I started working for myself. By 1977, and I did a whole number of things. I built motorcar batteries. I had a company manufacturing tonneau covers for the buckies, trailers, boat trailers, bike trailers, and so I got into business and I started working for myself. And over the years I worked for myself, a couple of big companies as well. I worked for Sharp Electronics for a number of years. I had worked for Old Mutual. I was the national marketing manager for the EP Building Society in those days, which of course was taken over later by other companies. And so I worked for myself for a number of years.
So Norman, jy het baie ervaring in besighede opgesit, manufacturing soos sê, vervaardiging. En toe word jy 55 en dit was in die jaar 2000 en so by the way, Norman, jy het onlangs 80 geword, baie geluk daarmee. Ek moet vir jou eerlikwaar sê, jy lyk nie vir my 80 nie. Ek is
nee, dis die Here se genade, dis al. Net sy genade.
As iemand vandag vir my sê, Herman, jy kan kies, wil jy so lyk en wees op 80, dan vat ek daai ticket nou en ek hardloop. Verseker. So jy is geseënd en ons albei besef dit, nee. Maar op 55 in die jaar 2000 is daar nog 'n belangrike datum wat in jou lewe gebeur.
Ja. Op die 2de Oktober 2000, toe is ek en die vrou in die kerk. En ons het begin kerk toe gaan. Ek het bietjie weggeraak van die Here. So slowly but surely I drifted away, en toe was die kerk nou nie meer so belangrik nie, maar toe gaan ons nog steeds kerk toe, en die kinders het Sondagskool toe gegaan in daai klas ding, maar oor die jare, besigheid het so belangrik geword. Nee? Ek was so besig met die besigheid, toe skep ek dit bietjie af. Toe skep ek die Here af, ek sit hom toe so bietjie een kant toe. Maar op daai dag, 2nd of October 2000, ek sit in die kerk, en ek kan nie vir jou beskryf nie, maar toe voel ek. I just remember the calling that I'd heard about as a youngster. This calling came to me, and I was so convicted that from today, I'm no more the boss. I'm handing everything over to God, and I did. The very next day I went to the Bible college to go enroll. Not necessarily for the degree or for a piece of paper on the wall, but just to be further educated or equipped to serve. And strange how things happen. I told you that I'd been working for myself. I made this appointment for the Bible college for 10 o'clock. But before then I went down to Cresta to go to my post box. I opened the post box, took a whole lot of mail out, all company stuff. Stuck it in my briefcase, went to the Bible college, 10 o'clock I was there chatting to this lady, and as we're talking I'm saying, so what can I do? What courses have you got? So we were discussing a few different options. I said, look, I don't want to come and get a degree, but just what can I do to be further equipped? And so we were looking at various options. And so she said, well, what about these? And as she's recommending stuff for me, her phone rings. And she says, yes, and she's talking, and then she says, you're phoning from the Faroe Isles. You want to come to our Bible? Well, let me tell you about it. So she apologized. I said, that's fine, you carry on. While she was talking to them about them coming all the way from the Faroe Isles, Denmark's part of the world, to South Africa, to the Bible College, which is the Baptist Theological College, by the way. So I opened my briefcase and I started going through my mail. She's chatting away to these people, and I'm going through stuff and say, okay, that's an account. And then here's an envelope, and it's handwritten. And I have a look at it, and it's addressed to me. And so I open it up, and I'm wondering, what is this? And inside there's a check. And I have a look and I say, oh wow, at last, these people have paid me the money that they owe me. I said, oh good, 1,743 rand. So, she's busy finishing. She's busy saying goodbye to them. So put the check back in the envelope, closed up my briefcase, and I said, okay, so we've gone through all of this. What is this going to cost to do? She said, well, if you take this option, these 3 courses that we've had a look at, it's going to cost you 1,743 rand.
Yeah, you're not serious, Norman.
Exactly the amount for the course was that
Fantastic.
check. So, I mean, what could I do? I said, Lord,
that's it, paid for.
You've called, you've provided, I'm in.
Paid for. Dis 'n mooi storie,
Ja.
Norman. Dit het jou geïnspireer, en jy het toe hierdie kursusse gedoen, nog 'n jaar bietjie gewerk, en daarna het jou lewe 'n ander draai gevat.
Yeah, well, I just said to the Lord, you know, I'm doing this part-time, these 3 courses, but I'd love to do this full-time. But of course I'm busy working, I've still got the business on the go, and I'm doing business broking now. I'd sold off my business. I'm helping other people to buy and sell businesses. You want a business? I'll help you find something. How much money you got? What is your strengths and weaknesses in business? So we'd find you something. Or you want to sell your service station? I'd find you a buyer. So I was a broker. So, and that's what I was doing. There was no salary, but of course there's nice commissions coming in. So I prayed to the Lord and I said, you know, Lord, if I could just get a nice commission, yeah, I'll get rid of the business and I'll go full time. And that's what I wanted to do. So I was working and at Bible College doing my year as a distance learner, correspondence, and I'm asking the Lord, please. So a man came to me one day and he said, man, I want you to sell my business. He wanted 600,000 for it. I said, well, my commission's 10% or 15,000, whichever is the greater. So he said, no, you sell it. And I got him a couple of potential buyers. They had a look. And he said to me one day, he said, listen, man, I need that money. Just get me my 600,000. I said, hey, but you've got to pay a commission. He said, well, the balance, 540,000 is what I want net. I need the money. get rid of it. I said, if I can get more, he said, whatever you get above what is yours. So I said, man, this is
an opportunity.
This is such an opportunity. So I went and I got a guy and I said, well, what do you think the business? He said, what does the guy want? I said, well, this is what it's worth on paper, which was quite a bit more than the guy wanted. So look, this is what it's worth. So I said, why do we make the man an offer? So we made him an offer for a couple of 100,000 more than he actually wanted. And I said to him, I said, listen, I've got you. He said, just give me what I want. And the balance is, I said, are you sure? We'll put it in the document of sale. He said, that's fine. So we put his 540,000 and he knew what to sell him. He said, that's yours.
Wow.
He had what he wanted. He obviously was a bit of a hurry to get some money.
Sure.
For whatever his reason was. So I said, thank you, Lord. Next year I enrolled at Bible College full-time, and that was me.
And that gave you the opportunity to actually, look after yourself, in a sense. Jy
Yes,
kan
want-
vir jouself gesorg het,
Ja.
in ander woorde, vir daai tydperk wat
Ja,
jy...
daai kommissie was groot genoeg om vir alles te betaal vir die jaar. Nee, nee. Toe gaan ek Bible College toe voltyds en en die geld was daar. En toe in die tussentyd, ek het nog 1 of 2 klein deeltjies gedoen, toe verkoop ek die besigheid. Want ek is nou sê ek die Here se man. En toe begin ek en terwyl ek op by die colleges word ek gevra om 'n man te kom help. And he was running a drug rehab. In fact, it was the first drug rehab in the country.
Wow.
Phoenix House.
Phoenix House.
Phoenix House was established by a Transvaal Act of Parliament, the Transvaal Parliament. They established that. And a doctor by the name of Sylvain de Miranda, he started it. Okay. And so I went there as the spiritual advisor. And so I worked there and I started this ministry called Phoenix House Ministries. But after a couple of years, I got a call from a church. I'm now finished at college, I'm running this ministry, and I get a call from a church, the Waterkloof Baptist Church. And I was there for 2005 and 2006. But then one day, I came to work, went into my office, and I don't know what happened, but I just got this conviction. I need to resign. I need to leave the church. And I'm saying, no, man. Yeah, here I am. I'm now what? I'm deep in my 50s, and 60s, and I'm thinking, yeah, by the time I get to 65, I can retire and one thing and another. But I have this conviction to retire. So I just said, you know what, Lord, I don't know what you're doing, but so I resigned.
Wow.
I resigned. I felt this conviction, and so I did. I resigned from the church. And I got into my car, and as I drove away from the church, and Waterkloof Baptist is only about 1 kilometer from the highway, and as I hit the highway, so my car phone rang, and I answered that call, and that call started the ministry that I'm in today. And of
What
course,
is that ministry called, Norman?
the ministry is Broken Wings Ministry.
Broken Wings.
Yeah, I was very involved with the shelter. We'll call it a drug rehab. They used to call them drug rehabs, but today, to call yourself a drug rehab, there are so many rules and regulations according to the government. Yeah, that if you use that name, you better have all the little things in place. And of course, being a Christian, if I didn't have everything in place, I couldn't use that title, drug rehab. So I call our place a shelter. Yes, we do look after drug addicts. We look after the homeless, the destitute, all men. And we've been doing that since 2002, 2003. And my partner in that, an Indian man by the name of Barney Augustine, unfortunately he died a couple of years ago with COVID. So his son, we've made his son now take over. So he runs it on a daily basis. It's a Broken Wings ministry, and we call that House of Compassion. And over the years, we've looked after hundreds of men. We've certainly helped a lot, but there's been a lot that we haven't been able to help. Yeah. When they come to you, some have come only because they're hiding from their drug lord, so they hide at our place. Some, their parents are going to disown them if they don't come. Others, the police bring them to us. Yeah. We've had them sent from the court. They must spend 9 months with us. That's their prison sentence. But for 9 months, they must spend time with us so we can help rehabilitate them from their drug.
So Norman, you didn't retire, you went on doing the Lord's work and made a difference up to now and even going forward to many people's lives. Now you've traveled a lot.
I have.
And you tell us about the travel that involved over the last couple of years.
Right. Well, around about 2009, so I'd left the Waterkloof Baptist. I had the ministry now that I have now, Broken Wings. And after 4 years or so, I was approached by a ministry called Multi Ministries. And they asked, wouldn't I come and teach for them? So go away for 3 or 4 days to an area, teach and train rural pastors. So that's what I started doing. And little did I know at the time that the Lord was going to make this a big thing in my life. So I worked with Multi Ministries. I didn't work for them, I worked with them. And they would pay my expense and give me a vehicle, and I'd go off to weird and wonderful places, East London, Queenstown, up into Zim, Swaziland, and so on. And so I started traveling. And if you have a look at my my passport, in a period of 11 years, I left the country 97 times.
Wow.
97 times in 11 years. So I was leaving the country 8-9 times a year. To travel, but the travel was mainly to teach and train rural pastors. So because of my age, I started feeling this thing that I need to pass the baton on to the younger guys. And the rural pastors, a lot of them, they're teaching error. They were trained at the feet of another pastor. They never had the privilege of going to a Bible college or going to a Bible school or anything like that. So the guys are a little ignorant. They're just teaching what they've been taught. And I say, some of it's been error. And so I've had the privilege, man, what a privilege. I've been to somewhere like Brazil 6 times. I've been to India on a number of occasions, Indonesia, and I've been to America, Canada, and all over the African continent. I think it's 17 countries now on the African continent that I'm teaching and training pastors, and I'm still doing that. Wow. But at heart, I'm the evangelist. So I say to the guys, I'll come, I'll teach and train. I'll train during the day, but at night, I want to be in the pulpit in your church.
Wonderful.
And then I want to share the gospel. And I've had the privilege of working with some big organizations like the Louis Palau Association. I'm just trying to think of I forget the name for a minute. The Africa Evangelical Society. And I've been on the stage and I've been privileged. I've preached and I've evangelized to 15, 20,000 people at a time and seen the results that God has brought with His Spirit working in the lives of people.
Norman, wat jy vandag vir my vertel het is sprekend van 'n eyster. Dis hoekom ons vandag gesels. En ek dink wat so waar is in jou geval ook, jy's 'n eyster, maar jy slyp met ander eysters. En dit het jy ervaar dwars deur jou lewe spesiaal vanaf die ouderdom van 55 af, né?
Ja, nee, kyk, dis baie belangrik. Ons is nie 'n eiland nie. As jy nou if you become an evangelist, die een probleem is jy werk op jou eis. En dan word jy die probleem is jy kan 'n lone wolf word. En dit is 'n probleem. The minute you become a lone wolf and you're just doing everything on your own, nee, jy moet verantwoordelik wees by 'n kerk of een of ander association, jy's verantwoordelik by hulle en so aan. So die ding, en ek hou van spanwerk. Man, jy moet in 'n span werk, want jy's reg, yster slyp yster. Iron sharpens iron, okay?
En wat is die res van daai vers, Norman? Dit sê en vriende vorm mekaar, né?
Ja.
Friends form one another.
Yes, absoluut. En dit is so lekker om ergens te gaan met 'n klomp mense wat die Here so liefhet. En ons gaan dan ons werk saam. En daar's nie kompetisie nie. Want dit is alles vir die Here en dit is net vir hom. Ons doen dit vir hom, nie vir onsself nie. Ja, partykeer weet mense kom en dan klap op die skouers en sê well done. Ek sê nee, dis lekker. Dankie dat jy ervaar of dankie dat jy sien wat ek doen, maar alle prys gaan aan.
Absoluut. Norman, baie dankie. Ek wil vir jou voorspoed toewens op die ouderdom van 80.
Dankie.
Jy is so geseënd en mag jy nog baie jare gespaar wees om die woord van die Here uit te dra aan ander mense. Baie dankie.
Nee, dis my plesier en go well, God bless you
Thank
en
you
wat
very
ook al jy doen hiermee en ek hoop dat die wat jy nou hier gedoen het. Ek hoop dit gaan verder en mense kan sien dat die prys is aan hom en ek hoop dat ander mense kyk wat doen kyk wat doen die mense wat jy nou interview, né? Kyk wat maak hulle. Man, wat van ons? I hope to encourage other people to do the same or similar.
Dankie Norman, soos wat ons sê by Eysters, daar is yster in elke mens. Baie dankie.
My plesier. God bless you.